What's up, everybody? It is Niko House and Brandon Finley here with MCSC Sports to discuss the recent controversy or recently reintroduced controversy of Colin Kaepernick and that crazy situation where it seems to be, there's this divide amongst people, which is there are people who solely believe that it's the NFL holding him back because of what he is protesting for. And there are a lot of people who just believe that Colin Kaepernick is a trash football player who does not deserve a spot on the football team. Now, me and Finley are going to discuss what we think it is. Finley we're kind of like around the same opinion. There's just like a little nuance as in like what instances he may be being blackballed and when he is not. And it's just a matter of he's not a fit for the team. But what's going on, Finley? How you doing, man?
I'm good, man. It's good to be here.
Glad to hear it, bro. I'm glad to hear it. So you recently did an article and a video and a podcast on why what teams you think that he's just simply not a fit for. What are some of those teams?
Right. So in relation to that article, it seems now every time that any kind of quarterback gets signed in the NFL, the next thing you're going to see responding to that Adam Schefter or Ian Rappaport tweet is going to be, but why has Colin not got a job?
Absolutely.
And to be honest with you, when you look at a specific game standpoint and you look at guys like Brock Osweiler, who's bounced around the league having done nothing, you look at Josh Johnson, the quarterback who hasn't – the one I put the article – he hasn't thrown a pass in an NFL game since 2011. You know what I'm saying? And since then, Colin Kaepernick has a season with 16 touchdowns and 4 interceptions. Colin Kaepernick has over 300 yards of offense by himself in a playoff game against the Green Bay Packers and has taken a team to the Super Bowl. So how is it, that's the big thing. Guys like Thad Lewis, guys that are just camp arms, and people say, why is Colin Kaepernick not getting signed as a camp arm? At least at a minimum, a tryout. And
as a camp arm, I think it'd actually be too controversial.
Right. What you're looking for, and what it comes down to, when you're talking about these low kind of signings is you're signing in guys that are like vet minimum, guys that you're bringing in to just kind of have around to get reps, especially within rookie OTAs, because a lot of the vets aren't going to show up until the mandatory sign up. So you need somebody to throw the football. And that's what we're talking about with a camp arm. We're also talking about the way preseason games work. Normally your starter will play in the first one for a quarter, the second one for a half, and then the third one, they'll play 3/4 of the game. And then the fourth one, they won't play at all.
Mm-hmm.
So you're just kind of bringing in a guy to throw to your third and fourth stringers. And it doesn't make sense to bring in Kaepernick in that situation because, one, Kaepernick's better than that, if that makes sense. You know? Like camp arm guys, for example, are going to be your Kellen Moores. Even actually, Kellen Moore was a good backup quarterback. Tim Tebow was a camp arm for New England. Camp arm for
I forgot about that.
Yeah, he's a camp arm for Philly. Thad Lewis is a guy that kind of bounces around as a camp arm. So with Colin Kaepernick,
but you're not about to put a Super Bowl veteran in the camp arm as a camp arm. It's just because you're not like most owners aren't even going to make that offer because they'll just automatically assume that your agent will deny and decline it.
Right, exactly, because it's very much vet minimum. It's very much you're getting cut. And here's another thing too, when we talk about a fit. And what I addressed in the podcast and the article is that there's more value that a backup quarterback can bring to a team, Niko, than just on-field play. And what you're getting with Colin is you're getting value from your on-field play quarterback. There are things that he can do at a high level, and there's some things that he can't do at a high level. We'll get into that later. But when specifically addressing guys like, let me go, Josh Johnson, and Brock Osweiler, and even by extension, Jay Cutler last year in Miami.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me kind of break that down really quick. The common thing between both of those teams is they both have franchise quarterbacks. Miami is debatable when you're talking about Ryan Tannehill, but they believe that they're right now, as far as I'm concerned, they believe that he's their guy. Barring that the ACL injury is not too much. It doesn't pull RG3 or situations, but ACL injuries are just different now. And then Derek Carr up in Oakland. I mean, he signed a crazy contract. We know he's a franchise guy there. So these teams are not looking for starting quarterbacks. They're looking for backup quarterbacks. And what is the role of a backup quarterback? It's basically another guy in the film room. He's charting plays. He's a support system for the backup. And the best thing I can point to would be Dan Orlovsky. He was a backup quarterback for Matt Stafford, for Peyton Manning, and he ended up playing on that team after Peyton Manning got hurt. He had to start a couple games, but he does a lot of podcasts and Twitter. He's big on Twitter now. So
Really?
Yeah. And what he does is
That's that backup life, man. That backup life.
Yeah. He's out now. But what he does is he talks a lot about on these podcasts about what the role is of a backup quarterback and him knowing that he's not going to start and being able to contribute, because 50, and the best way, I'll keep it short with his input, but he says 53 people are preparing for a game that only 52 people are meant to play in. And what he means by that is everybody on that team is preparing, whether it be I'm the starter, whether it's I'm a rotational sub-package player, whether I'm a special teamer. Everybody in all these meetings and films and practices is preparing to play on Sunday, except the backup quarterback.
And he's preparing like he has to start.
He's not even the backup quarterback. He's not going to play. He knows he's not going to play.
Yeah, but I'm saying, but he has to prepare as if he's going to start.
Exactly.
Like mentally watching film,
right. Backup quarterbacks. And so Dan was talking about how, like, with backup quarterbacks, you normally see those guys turn into coaches later on, because what they need to do is they need to find ways to take all this complex offense and all these meetings they're in with the coordinators, the coaches, the quarterbacks, all that stuff. And he has to have reps to the third string running back, who might be bright as hell or he might be dumb as hell. You know, you've seen a lot of situations.
Usually it's when they're dumb, which is why they're third string.
I mean, think about guys that struggle with playbooks, Chad Ochocinco or Chad Johnson, whatever he goes by nowadays. You know what I'm saying? Like, he was killer. High-level all-pro athlete in Cincinnati, went to New England, didn't start a game because
I forgot about that.
You know what I'm saying? So that's the big thing is, as the backup quarterback, he needs to come in for rep purposes and scout team purposes, have to explain things to a backup running back who might not learn the same way that Matt Stafford learns things. You know, you can't just come in and you know, it's like he speaks my language kind of deal. He's speaking my language. And that's why you see guys like Garrett, or is it Jarrett? The Cowboys coach was a backup quarterback.
Not Dwayne Garrett. Is it Dwayne Garrett?
No, not Dwayne Garrett. He's a white guy. Dwayne? That's racist.
I mean, it could be Wayne Garrett. Wayne's a white guy name.
I think it's Jarrett. Oh, man, it's going to come back to me off the cuff. Gary Kubiak was a backup quarterback for John Elway.
Mm-hmm.
Both Harbaughs played quarterback.
I can believe that.
Doug Peterson, Super Bowl winning coach, was a backup quarterback.
Which, by the way, the fact that Harbaugh played quarterback and then went out of his way to in the last minute to put Kaepernick over Alex Smith means that he knew that that Kaepernick was a better fit for whatever reason in that scenario than Alex Smith was, to get them over that hump that, you know, San Francisco had been accustomed to up until that point.
Mm-hmm. And many people see that and they go, well, why is Alex Smith signing
Jason Garrett.
Why is he signing $23 million contracts to Washington, Alex Smith, when Colin Kaepernick obviously, quote unquote, came in and was the better? And we can get
that's what's even worse. I was, you know, of course I threw the idea out of my head because I knew it wasn't going to happen. Redskins don't fly like that. They gave RG3 like a bunch of, you know, hoopla whenever he was outspoken. So, especially with all the controversy surrounding the Washington Redskins logo and their name right now and their trademark, like, it just was no way it's going to happen. But Kaepernick actually would have been great for our team because, well, one is just two things that we're missing. It wasn't the quarterback, but now it is. I still feel like that even with Alex Smith, because, like, think about it. Jim Harbaugh, Super Bowl veteran, decided that Kaepernick was better than Alex Jones if you're trying to win a ring. Not better at some aspects of the game, which I can concede that Alex Smith is more accurate, but more accurate in the clutch. I don't think so, but he is more accurate. I feel like he's a better playbook style. Like, if you have the right coach and the right formations, I feel like he can execute better than Colin Kaepernick is. But the problem is what happens when the plays get blown up, What happened when the game isn't going according to plan? How does Alex Smith respond in those big moments? And the answer is we know how he responds.
To not see a Chiefs team go deep into the playoffs especially with the talent they had, especially
it was
with
ridiculous.
They had against
no reason they shouldn't have been in the Super Bowl.
So yeah, exactly. There is a
point was it's just that Jim Harbaugh saw this, and we like because obviously we all know Kaepernick was available, right? At a bargain at this point, right? That Alex Smith was not available for.
Right.
And so you decide, you know what we're going to do? Let's get Alex Smith, despite the fact that we know how this story is going to end. We don't even have to guess if we're going to make it to a Super Bowl. I can tell you all, it's no. We're going to make it 2-3 games away. We may even do a little better this season, but we still haven't even accounted for the defense that we have a problem with, which I personally believe Kaepernick's style of play complements like that. The fact that we lack in defense, he can keep you on the field and have have a little bit better. I won't call it game management, but at least he can run the clock down with his legs a little bit, way more efficient than Alex Smith can, and make a lot of things happen out of the pocket that Alex Smith can. That will keep your offense on the field, keep your defense off the field as long as possible.
Right. And kind of bringing it back to, it all comes down to what fit. And Jim Harbaugh is a guy who has a lot of success at making the game easier for quarterbacks, especially quarterbacks with physical talents. And that just wasn't something that you were going to get with Alex Smith, as opposed to Colin Kaepernick, who possesses very physical talents. And if you can make the game easy for a guy like him, then and make it as simple as possible and let him trust his instincts and his abilities, as well as being complemented by a Frank Gore rushing offense, and it's kind of unfair because a lot of things that, and it's something I say, but you have to take it with a grain of salt, right? Because a quarterback can't do it alone, is he had a top 5 running game and a top 5 offense. And
a top 5 defense.
Top 5 defense, top 5 running game. So to have a lot of your issues being taken care of by your defense and made up for, having but you have to remember, he's part of that rushing attack that has top 5. He's contributing to that. You can't
heavily. He broke a record that year, right?
Right.
Or at least maybe the next year. I don't know if it was that year, but the next year when you started.
He at least had some pretty ridiculous games and pretty ridiculous runs. The ability to it almost limits your ability to run man coverage, because if everybody is turned away from the quarterback and he breaks loose from a defensive end or a defensive tackle, it's 15, it's 20, if not more.
In our generation, I think that, because I would say that he's even a little faster than Cam Newton. I don't know if you would say quicker. I would say he's a little bit faster than Cam Newton. And for him to be, 6'3", 6'4", and to be that fast, where he can outrun the defense if they try to chase, that was like damn near unheard of. Michael Vick was fast as hell, but, he was small.
Colin was pretty thin. I'd put him at 220, probably 6'4", 6'5", maybe a little bit shorter.
I think it's 225, 230. When he was at his peak physical condition, that's what I remember looking.
Right.
I looked it up.
He definitely is faster than Cam, but Cam is, you're trading just a little bit of speed for, power.
For a tank.
He's literally a defensive end playing quarterback. But
bigger than some defensive end.
It's crazy. It's Cam Newton. Cam Newton and LeBron James are the closest things we have to Master Chief from Halo. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. No, I totally agree.
When we're talking about superhuman abilities. And so back to this thing with the backup quarterback position fit, right? So Jay Cutler, he wasn't really impressive in Chicago as he got older. Brock Osweiler, who just signed with Miami, not very impressive at all with any of his time at any point. So why are those two guys in consecutive years signed to the Dolphins to be backup quarterback and not Colin Kaepernick to maybe come in and run an offense? Because we don't know what the status of Ryan Tannehill is, right?
Well, yeah, both of those players, they play under the same quarterback, right? Or coach.
Adam Gase. Adam Gase was with Brock Osweiler his early years in Denver when Peyton was there. And then Jay Cutler had his best season in his last 10 years of playing under Adam Gase.
Which is still like 8-8, by the way, but continue.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. But there was a lot of things wrong with that Bears organization, so it's good to see them turn it around.
True.
So what I mean is you're bringing in guys that know the system to make it easier for newer guys on your team, especially with a team like Miami, which is having a big turnover. I mean, Jarvis Landry's gone. Ndamukong Suh just signed with the Rams. Your two best players are gone. So Miami is – and they brought in Frank Gore, but Miami's in almost a complete rebuild here. So bringing in guys that know the system, a backup to kind of help teach is going to just make the whole team better. Then bringing in Colin. So now you have to also teach Colin the system. So now I don't have anybody to kind of help mentor the system. We don't know I don't believe Jay Cutler's coming back. I believe he was on a 1-year deal. I know Matt Moore is
gone. 1 year, 10 million. Lord Jesus.
So I know
Miami fans were pissed down here. Miami fans were pissed.
Right.
And I mean, so I would have to say though, that makes sense if you look at that in a vacuum. However, like I said, last year, the new players thing wasn't the case. It was, you have a choice whether to pay Jay Cutler or sign Colin Kaepernick. And I'm not saying that you had to sign Colin Kaepernick to a 3-year deal. You don't have to worry about the backups. Sign him for 1 year, see how he meshes with the team. You now have a potential long-term – because obviously Kaepernick is 6-7 years younger than Jay Cutler. So you have a long –
30, I know that.
Huh?
Cap is 30, I know that.
Yeah, I thought he turned 29 this year.
Cap's
30.
I
mean, he might be 30, but I think he turned 29 this year. So he's like significantly younger. And then as far as the QBIQ, maturity, the way the game looks to you and your vision, that's around the prime for a quarterback, which like between 30 and 40 at this point. Apparently that's not where it stops either. If you had damn Tom Brady. But they didn't sign him. There was every excuse under the sun. Some people were saying that because of the Castro Sox that most people in Miami actually forgot about until they brought it back up. Because and once again, winning, covers for a multitude of sins. If you win, people just stop caring about what you did. Remember how everybody forgot them dogs that Michael Vick fought when he was balling out on the Eagles? Everybody forgot. It was instantly. But at the same time, he did something that the league was not fond of. He was signed almost instantaneously. And I think if he didn't just retire, I think he may still be on a roster, at least as a backup.
Bro, Ray Rice punched his wife out in an elevator, and teams were thinking about signing him. Okay.
Yeah, and it was really just a matter of, he's on the bottom, like he's on the way down.
Are you on a Pro Bowl level of play at a consistent level? Because I hate the idea. I hate when people paint this picture of Colin like, oh, he's a media distraction. Bro.
What's the NFL? What is it? Like
everybody's a media distraction. And if you are
a walking distraction.
if you are good enough, people will pay you.
Greg Hardy.
Alden Smith.
He had to pretty much convince the league to not sign him. And I think he eventually still got signed after he got released from the Cowboys.
Right. And we could talk about weed. You know how, I personally don't feel marijuana is an issue with a player's personality. I think obviously an addiction to drugs, the inability to stop is an issue. I don't have an issue. I think weed personally should be allowed in the game of football.
I feel like it just should be there should be a stipulation of during the season, you cannot smoke. During the off season, you can. And then you take it from there. Obviously, you can get more nuance because that's obviously very cut and dry. But the season actually isn't that long.
Yeah.
So like to have 6 months and then in the recovery period of their careers, which is the off season, for them to be able to smoke and relax and take their minds off the game. And for some people, as far as pain is concerned, that's actually a big issue. People trying to put on weight for whatever reason. Having the ability to have marijuana and to, use marijuana to step your, to increase your appetite is something I think is perfectly fine. And it's better than them using PEDs because you're not getting an unfair advantage. You're just using what natural remedies are available to you in order to, give yourself a better chance to succeed. Because it's stupid that some people literally, it's a matter of they can't, for whatever reason, they can't gain weight to be competitive, right? They can gain weight. To us, they look big, but to the NFL, they look small.
Right.
If you need to gain weight, you got to eat. You can lift as much as you want to, but you got to eat on top of taking them protein shakes. And even with the protein shakes, you got to be willing to you have to want to drink it. You have to be thirsty or hungry for it.
Right.
And so, yeah, with the marijuana thing, I think it was a good old, it's a good old boys club in the NFL. And you got a bunch of conservatives who think that the marijuana is the devil. So,
but we're willing to hand 24-year-old men Vicodin and let them get addicted to pain pills
by the caseload.
Right.
Big pill addiction right now issue. And,
but my point leading with marijuana is Josh Gordon is an all-pro level wide receiver. And he hasn't played a full season of football since 2013, but he's on the team. They've been waiting for that dude to come back. My point is painting this argument like, oh, Colin's a distraction to the team. No, it's not. Michael Bennett, you know what I'm saying? Look at everything the Bennett brothers.
Walking.
Right?
Him too.
So, and really it comes down to trying to make up some excuse.
Beckham's still going to get a max contract. He just got caught with coke in his room. You think that Beckham's not going to get a max deal?
Yeah, He's
right.
still about to make bank. He's the third. So, and that's wherein lies my argument, because we've talked about fit, right? We know that he's not going to be a fit because all the teams don't. And one of the things people, especially with Jim Harbaugh, right? People implement college-style concepts within their offense that Colin is perfect for. Issue lies with how do I disguise pro concepts to look like college concepts? How do I run pro concepts completely alone and then implement college concepts between? And what I mean by that is, just having regular offense and then implementing things like run pass options. And I know you might be familiar with it, but basically the concept is you'll have a handoff for a running back, and you have the option to hand it off to him or pull it and make a throw based on what one defender is doing. That is something that is a very college-style play within a spread offense, and that's something that you could do. But being able to now disguise other reads and plays like that to look like run-pass options, that's something that the Eagles do very well, and how they had success with Foles.
Yep.
And there'll be a film review coming in on that. So that's where Colin struggles, is the pro concepts and making certain throws, because there's a handful of throws that Colin throws extremely well. Extremely accurately. He's good on the run. He's good in throwing on the run and mobility. But when we talk about those phrases you just throw out at cliche guys, he can make all the throws. When it comes down to it, he can't make all the throws and reads at a high level that you're looking for.
I would agree. But here's my only question about that. Is it that he can't do it at a high level that we're looking for? Or was it in the times that we saw him in what we perceived was his peak, which we have no idea if it was his peak? He was just underdeveloped. He was a backup for his entire career up to that point. And they threw him in. He had to learn fast. And so I would probably agree that he got accustomed to it and he got used to it because it was an easier offense. But in the next year, he did extremely well again. And then they fired Harbaugh. And then they brought in one coach who has never coached an NFL game in his life. He was simply a defensive coach at one point, and then he coached overseas.
Jim Tom,
who was trash. He just was trash at the entire offense, right? And then you got Chip Kelly came in. Chip Kelly simply we know how he is about outspoken black players, especially the stars. So he got punished for that. And then, of course, obviously, when he eventually was forced to put Kaepernick back in, Kaepernick went off. And in Chip Kelly's offense, because Chip Kelly's offense is actually not bad at all for Kaepernick. Actually, it's perfect for Kaepernick.
It's very college based.
It's perfect for Kaepernick. It's just that they
had success with the numbers perspective.
Yeah, they exactly. And so, and even he and Kelly would clash. That's why it wouldn't work. But it looks to me as if the facade that Kaepernick isn't good in a particular offense is two problems with it. One, there's not an abundance of quarterbacks in the NFL. There's look at all these people who are better. No, there are not a lot of people better than him. They're not. You might be able to name definitively maybe 13 or 14 clearly better than him. Now, you obviously get into the gray area depending on what your team needs, but clearly definitively better than Kaepernick, maybe 13 or 14. So, and maybe three of those have been, maybe even not even three, maybe two of those have been to a Super Bowl and got within one pass of winning and then got back to a conference championship the very next year. That's not a thing that happens often. So obviously there's a level of consistency there. So since the teams don't mold their offenses according to the quarterback that is the best, that is the most available, that's not a thing. It's never been that way. The only teams that don't do that end up getting their ass handed to them all year long, which is what we saw in San Francisco. Then two, do we know that he can't read offenses and he can't, get the playbook down pat based off of really a year and a half of consistent play under one coach and then having to go through a debacle of coaches after that? Do we know that he's not good at that? Or are we assuming that because of that 1.5 year of play?
That's a very fair point. I think that's a great point because look at what I want to bring up is the 2 seasons or the 3 seasons that he had the best success were under coaches that build offenses around very college style concepts. Jim Harbaugh, Chip Kelly. And Chip Kelly's offense is high volume, low turnover rate, very easy throws. And I don't need to point any farther than 2013 Chip Kelly offense quarterback Nick Foles, who went for 27 touchdowns.
Crazy good.
And 2 interceptions.
Crazy good anyway.
Right. 27 touchdowns, 2 interceptions in 10 games. Right. Mm-hmm. So, and then you see Cap with 16 touchdowns and 4 interceptions. So even though that wasn't really winning games for San Francisco, there's other factors that contributed to that. It's
like obvious, they didn't have anybody.
Very true. It's very obvious that, I mean, they had Anquan. Boy.
Yeah. So that was like one. So not even all the years though. I think the year that they did it, I don't even know if he was healthy for all of that whenever Kaepernick was playing. So I remember I looked it up and I was looking at the top receivers or that accumulated for all the touchdowns that Kaepernick received or threw. And it was like, bro, you don't know who the hell they are, right. Which makes it even more impressive to a degree. Because he didn't have talent surrounding it. People, you got to really understand the NFL, I guess, and it's something as you get older, you realize your team is in the ability for your quarterback or your running back even, or even your receivers or cornerbacks to succeed have to do with your organization. When your organization puts you in a position to succeed and you have the talent, you will likely succeed. But otherwise, you are doomed to fail. In San Francisco, when they fired Jim Harbaugh, that was damn near the start of the apocalypse for the San Francisco 49ers. I don't know why they did it. To this day, I don't know why they did it.
I mean, look, I want to say his name's not Jason Smith, but it might have been Joshua Smith. One of their all-pro defensive tackles, defensive ends, interior linemen retired. Patrick Willis retired. Their backup linebacker, who they had drafted, I want to say out of Wisconsin, who was basically the truth to following up Patrick Willis's, Hall of Fame campaign. He retired his second or third year in the league because of the CTE issues. So when your top rookies and upcoming guys retires, you completely shed your offensive line.
Oh, you know what? I think I remember that. In his prime, he had a crazy year, and it was like, I'm out.
Yep.
Yeah, I remember that.
He bounced. He was actually on. Arian Foster does a big podcast now, and he has a bunch of ex-NFL players. He has Snoop Dogg on the other day. It was crazy. Snoop Dogg was going
always on the sports podcast.
Snoop Dogg, man. I know this is a little side note, but you got to check it out because Snoop was talking all about the rise of the Crips and the Bloods in LA, after the Black Panther drop, and he was talking about all the relations between him, Tupac, how they all met. All those different things rolled out when he created what was it called? Death Row Records, when he brought Chris and Bloods together on the same record label. What's the big?
Which had never happened before. Yeah, that's true.
What's the big label owner that he was under with Death Row?
Suge Knight.
Suge Knight, right. So he talks about his relationship with Suge Knight and how Suge Knight was very much they were there and Suge Knight made money, but all of their cars and stuff was in Suge Knight's name. And then about how he goes over to Master P, and then Master P was like, I'm gonna make y'all businessmen, and he like made them invest and like
really, that's dope, man.
So,
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, so he talks about how Master P was like, he was like, Suge Knight made money with Master P. Everybody made money.
Yeah, well, you know what they say about Master P? He the first guy from the hood to make it in all three of the dreams. He made it in rapping, basketball, and business.
Right.
Can't beat that.
So anyways, you know, back to the football, but he, you know, Aaron Foster has he brought Chris Borland on, and they talk a lot about football from a really player's perspective. But Jim Tomsula is not necessarily the most offensive. You know, all right. The biggest thing that they had that year was bringing in a rugby player to be their running back.
I remember that.
So
how'd that work out?
The kid started. So he's a star, but the fact that he was not ready, but he started.
He's like, hold on. He was a starter. That doesn't mean he was ready to start.
He was not ready to start. There were injuries. He was not ready to start. I liked it. I love the hype. He just wasn't ready. He had the ability to play at the high level. But when we're talking about supporting cast, and his starting running back is a rugby player this is like his 5th football game ever, I think that's a fair point to consider the fact that, you know, and then he goes and has Chip Kelly, who is not exactly the most successful NFL coach. I think you have a great point in terms of
self-defeating. Like a lot of his lack of success comes from his self-defeating attitude and how he treats his stars and why no star wants to play with him.
Yep. The whole, I think what it was like white socks. Everybody had to wear white socks, and Shady McCoy didn't wear white socks at practice, and he like sent him home or something like that. You know what I'm saying? Like
same, bro.
And then you see guys like Sean McVay, younger coaches that have this "I'm the 54th player on the team" mindset, where it's not me and you, it's us. And then we see instant success, and we see guys wanting to play for him. So,
like a Steve Kerr of the NFL.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's a good point that maybe we haven't seen, and I'll admit to that, maybe we haven't seen a Cap. Maybe it's unfair to analyze film and say, well, he can't do this, when it's like, well, where's the consistency? What NFL quarterback is having consistency
like him
without a coach, consistent coach? You know what I'm saying? Name one.
No quarterback. There's not one top 5 quarterback that hasn't had their coach for at least 5 years.
You know, exactly. Or you look at guys like Deshaun Watson, and you go, well, why is he having success? Well, he has one of the best offensive brains in the game in Bill O'Brien.
And who has been able to take mediocre quarterbacks and make them look great.
You want to know how that works? So, you know, Christian Hackenberg, the Penn State quarterback that went to the Jets in the 2nd round, that hasn't played a down and sucks, and nobody wants him.
I know that he hasn't played it down yet, but I do remember.
He hasn't played it down. He hasn't had a chance to play. Like, he's just so bad in practice and in preseason games that they haven't given.
You know it's bad when you bad in practice.
And you're a 2nd round quarterback, and he got drafted solely off of his freshman year. And the coach for him in his freshman year at Penn State was Bill O'Brien. So, yeah. So when we talk about making mediocre guys look good, that's it. Bill O'Brien's MO. So
look at what Bill Belichick's able to do with any quarterback that comes in and out when Tom Brady's injured.
Exactly.
Look at what Jim Harbaugh's able to do. It wasn't like, I mean, yeah, it was literally the difference between making it to the conference championship and the Super Bowl. But like, look what he's able to do with the quarterback with short notice. And he had success when he went to Michigan, right? When he went back to Michigan.
I mean, they haven't been too many
instantly,
there, but they've been a good team since he's gone back. But another thing you got to remember is the amount of time a quarterback has in the NFL to prove it is very small, and the NFL doesn't care about your circumstances.
Unless, there's caveats to that, but yes, right.
And one of the big things, and it might have been a cliche. It might have been a cliche to say this, or just I don't know what the term would be, but think about guys like Vince Young. Think about guys like RG3. And what I'm talking about is guys that had very successful years, and then either something happened or they got figured out, quote unquote, or exposed in the film room, and then there was just a drop off.
Yeah, exposed.
And that's what many perceived happened to Cap was, okay,
which was wrong. I feel like that wasn't accurate. I feel like they had the chance to study him, and then look what happened. He went to the conference championship the next year.
Right.
So
and then the supporting cast dropped.
And then his offense changed. Their offense changed. So what is there to like at that point? They got worse when they could there was a whole new offense with nothing to study.
Right.
So once again, that's just another factor that people don't consider. I know what you're talking about, though. That would be technically the year that should have been Kaepernick's sophomore slump. He went to the conference championship, which is what traditionally happens to quarterback with that skill set. Right. But then we've never seen that. People really have this. I don't know if it's, like I said, the defeatism type of thing or excuse why you think it's okay that someone's treated like that, which obviously goes really into the social issues, I feel like, and a little bit political. But like the excuses people make for why Kaepernick can't play, that's probably what makes people who are pro Kaepernick so much more vocal about it. Because it's like, if you're going to come up with the reason, like me and you have had discussions about him not fitting in certain regards. And I'm like, yeah, I would agree. It's hard to consider him as a backup for your starter when he's clearly a starter. But you can't make him a starter because your team's already invested your pick. Especially for the quarterback, it's usually your pick, first or second round, right, and you can't replace because that's a pick. You don't get that back. And then you can't put him as a starter for some teams because it would be, well, there are some teams or some locker rooms that are way too controversial, some coaches that would bump heads with them. Now, that's what pissed everybody off about the Seattle situation because there was none of that. He was a great quarterback great fit for their locker room, covering down on the things that you were talking about that you would like to see in the backup quarterback. He said that he wanted to be there, obviously knowing that Russell Wilson is the starter. The team, the locker room wanted him to be there. And then out of nowhere, he was just refused. Which, once again, doesn't make sense. And so that's where I think it gets a little bit chippy, which is like when you consider everything that they say Kaepernick can't do, which is really few and far between compared to some of the starters and backups in this league. People very rarely, if ever, touch on, holy shit, he's done a lot of things that have never been done. And usually once you get into the category of doing something that has never been done, people will bet on you anyway. Because what the hell they have to lose? There's not an abundance of quarterbacks.
Right. And to be honest with you, no team wants a young, really, really successful backup quarterback. Does that make sense?
It's the worst problem to have.
Because here's the issue. If you have a starter and then you have a clear cut who is inferior to your starter, but he's really good, every NFL team will just sell him.
Yeah.
Just sell him.
And even still, what if they're not inferior? But you've already invested in this quarterback. Because there are situations like that all the time where you've become – because it's not just about obviously the quarterback and his skill, which is what people see on the surface, but it's about my chemistry between this quarterback and these receivers, teaching that playbook over again, which takes a huge chunk of time. That's like a whole half, really the entire offseason you spend reteaching a quarterback something new. That's why you don't ever see quarterback signings in the middle of the season. Because you're not about to teach somebody an entire new offense, but you'll see a wide receiver come in the middle of the season or a quarterback, but you don't see QB trades in the middle of the season. Never happens. Right, so
none of them that are ready to start immediately. Obviously, you saw Jimmy Garoppolo get traded.
Yeah.
But that was less about getting him installed into the Niners offense immediately, and more so. He was due a contract at the end of the year, and New England would get zero value outside of I don't even know if they would have got a compensatory pick. So for people that don't know, if you lose a guy to free agency that was a high draft pick, you can get a pick in return. Right. You get compensated for a pick. But outside of that, they felt like they could get more value out of that. So they traded him then. But you're right. And I think that goes to why, when you were confused about why Jay Cutler got signed, is because it was a week out. 2 weeks out before the season started. So
that's another factor that could be considered. But
especially with
that sounds like a good excuse until you consider the fact that they had. Well, no, you're right, because Matt did get injured 2 weeks before the season. He got injured. That's right. Yeah, he got injured 2 weeks out. So but $10 million though. That's what I think was what threw salt in the wound. It's like, bro, $10 million.
It depends on what you perceive as value, how much money they have.
$10 million is a lot of value.
Remember, you have to pull Jay Cutler out of the booth to tell a guy that he's going to have to give up time with his family.
But you didn't have to. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you were expecting Jay Cutler to go get you a ring or even get you to like a finals or something, or not finals shit, to the Super, even to a conference championship, that's $10 million worth. That I agree with. Because that he knows the offense. I don't have to worry about him learning the offense on the fly. but that's not what you didn't know what was going on with Tannehill. You needed somebody, but you were still a playoff team, so you had to keep up that. But my thing is, once again, we know more than anybody else at this point, even though there's a different style. No, because even that offense that they ran was a very similar style that Kaepernick could have probably easily learned because it was built around Cutler's previous athleticism before.
Remember, this is an offense that was built off of Peyton Manning's offense.
Yeah.
This was that kind of offense. It is a complex offense. It does require, it's very pro style. Whether Colin can fit that, we don't know. And I think that goes back to your point that you made about maybe it was just circumstances and bad coaches around him. Look at Nick Foles, Case Keenum, and Jared Goff all struggling under Jeff Fisher. And then look at them going to other teams with coaches like Sean McVay, Mike Zimmer, Doug Peterson.
And Super Bowl rings.
And they go win Super Bowl rings, get deep into the playoffs, and Jared Goff led the number one offense in the NFL this year. Coaching is –
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. That was Todd Gurley. But the most important position on an offense is offensive coordinator.
Mm-hmm.
Then quarterback.
Yeah, trust me, I know. I'm a Redskins fan. Our
Right.
coordinators suck. Well, they have sucked. So
Shanahan and McVay were pretty good, and then they did.
Yeah, Shanahan was good. I mean, but once again, actually, talking about Kyle
Shanahan?
Yeah, Kyle was in my opinion too simplistic. He became predictable really fast, and I like people who don't even watch football that much. And I said maybe it was because we were switching quarterbacks too much, so that hurt us. You can't come up with new and exciting plays and switch things up too much when you, especially at the time, don't know every 2 games you don't even know who's going to start.
I like Shanahan, but there is, you are right about this switching quarterbacks, and I don't know how much Shanahan has a call in that. You know where Shanahan was before the Redskins?
No, actually. The Broncos?
Browns.
Browns.
Kyle Shanahan. His dad was a Broncos coach. Kyle Shanahan was the coordinator for the 2014 Browns that were 7-4 under Brian Hoyer, and then they made a quarterback change after being 7-4 to Johnny Manziel, and then lost out on the season, and that was that. Well, Johnny ends up.
I can't believe. I mean, I understand why people were tripping on Brian Hoyer, but like, bro, I feel like Brian Hoyer was actually a really good quarterback, and I feel like his age was overhyped. The problem with his age was really overhyped because I'm like, he hasn't even touched quarterback prime yet. If you can get 10 good years and a potential Super Bowl run, if you're the Browns, which I guess at this point they're more concerned about at least getting them excited about something. And I guess that was supposed to be Johnny, but I feel like Hoyer got the short end of that stick because he was a really good quarterback.
Yeah, and it's hard to have the crowd chanting. Think about Kyle Orton in Denver with Tebow right behind him, and how many times, like, anytime you do something wrong, it's we want Johnny Manziel, we want some Tebow. And Tebow and Johnny aren't the same quarterback, but the whole point is it's hard to be the guy when everybody wants the backup to play. It definitely
based off of literally nothing but hype from 3 years before, 2-3 years ago.
Right. But I do want to get your opinions on and kind of talk about it would be the protesting, because it's obvious that he's being blackballed, but I don't know how to explain to people that, for example, we're both vets, right?
Yeah.
And people don't seem to realize that we don't have this monopoly on the national anthem.
Not at all. Not even close.
The national anthem is not about the military. It's not about – yes, it was written in a time of war a long time ago, but we don't do it prior to games and events for the sake of the military. We do it as Americans. So
it's supposed to be a sign of unification, like a sign of unity, right? Under that flag and right. What it's supposed to represent. The issue, however, that Kaepernick was bringing up, which I don't know if obviously you know about Stephon Clark in Sacramento, who was shot 20 times in the back for having a cell phone, right? And 2 days later, Alton Sterling, who was wrongfully killed by a police officer, we just found out that both those police officers are going to walk, no charges whatsoever, and they're not even going to get investigated. That you hear how crazy that is? You kill somebody cold blood, you're not even getting investigated. However, if the military, we even let a round off downrange while we're deployed, you let a round off unaccounted for, immediate investigation, and you're lucky if you don't get Article 15 for it.
Mm-hmm.
Let alone if you kill somebody and they even perceive it to be accidental, you're going to get into UCMJ somehow, some way. So, and they're going to do deep psychological evaluations on you, and it's going to be something that you're not going to get over for years, depending on what unit you're in. So, what he's saying is there is, we may be unified on certain fronts, but there are fronts that we're not unified on, where marginalized people of color are the ones suffering from the lack of unity there, which is one, the opinion on police brutality and where it comes from and how it's originated, and disproportionate court justice system, for example, in which we found out recently the other day in the article USA Today, in the military, Black people are court-martialed and jailed disproportionately to their white counterparts. So, mind you, we don't make up a large portion of the military. We're about the same in the military as we are in the real world, which is 10 to 12% of the population. And yet we occupy 93% of the jails. And so that consistency in who has the power in the real world, just historically, and who has the power in the military historically. Right. So we see certain consistencies and Kaepernick is a very smart guy. And that's why he decided to protest. Now, what's interesting is that people said he was protesting because he was throwing a hissy fit, but they didn't even realize that he had been protesting before that.
True.
He had been protesting, two games before that? And then Marshawn Lynch, because they asked him why he was sitting, and then he had to answer. He wasn't looking for attention. He didn't run up to the reporters. He wasn't even the starter. Marshawn Lynch had been sitting his entire career. Nobody cared.
Right.
Right.
It's almost not even a protest in the sense of it's just.
Yeah, it wasn't even I wouldn't even call it a protest at the time. He was like, I just don't feel. I don't like it.
I don't stand for this, but you are more than welcome to. I'm not calling for you not to.
Exactly. He never asked for anyone to join him. Never.
The game of football has not been infringed on. There's nobody. It's not like he's taking the snap and not playing intentionally
and walking off the field with the ball, taking the ball and going home.
Exactly. I don't get. It's almost not even a protest. I don't mean to say that in a way that takes away from what.
No, I get what you mean. You're saying because they use protest in a very negative. They use it in a negative connotation when it was never what they're trying to make it out to be. Like, oh, he was just standing for against everything that we believe. He's like, he was just sitting down. He never asked y'all to do anything.
Yeah, he's not disrupting the song and taking the mic from anybody. And the only person that you should be taking the mic from is somebody singing bad. You know what I'm saying? At that point, like, right? So Christina Aguilera, right? Didn't she like destroy the Super Bowl one? But
I will even say this: like, consider it's the result of propaganda. People have no idea how programmed they've become. They don't even realize that we haven't even been. The players had not to come out for that national anthem until maybe 5 years ago. That's when that started, and it was done because the Department of Defense built $50 to $70 billion into a recruit from their recruiting department into the NFL, and that's why they were asked to come out. Because there's no NFL rule requiring you to stand, because they weren't thinking about that. They just was like, oh, here's some money. We'll have them come out and it won't be an issue because nobody will question it. Right. But they do remember when they play these national anthems at the NFL games, who do you usually see beside them? Or the screen ghosts pans to the military, right? They pans. And who was their number one demographic? Middle class to lower middle class, white people from conservative backgrounds.
Right.
And so that's why they use it as a recruiting tool, in case you were wondering, because they know you can't use it as a recruiting tool in the NBA. It wouldn't work that well because of the different demographics that watch it. And it's an internationally beloved game. So if you try to do something like that, you would probably get highly critiqued. Like if they tried to inject that much money into like the NBA to do some type of military recruiting, they would get highly critiqued by the players, no less. Let alone the international community. But we didn't even find out about that money being injected into the NFL until years down the line because of this protest. Why do you think that is? Right. Because the media didn't cover it. Why wouldn't the media cover something like $60 or $70 billion going into the NFL specifically to have people stand for a song? That's a big deal.
Right.
And that's part of programming. And so people's reaction usually comes from a lack of understanding. So they don't know where it came from, a lack of knowledge. Also preconditioning, family backgrounds, and what you've been told that flag means, and what you've been told the national anthem means, and what you've been told about. So to the point where you're acting so irrational and so reactive based off of what you're accustomed to, that you start fabricating statistics about Colin Kaepernick that aren't even true, and fabricating ideas, and everything becomes us against the military, and primarily it comes from people who aren't even in the military telling us how it offends us. Look, I don't care. When I fought for a right, to free speech and freedom of expression, that was including the things that I may not like. I'm not against what he's doing, but like Colin Kaepernick's friend who was special forces and played in the NFL, he was like, I don't have a problem with him taking a knee. And people just totally ignore that.
Right. He's the one who told him to take a knee.
He compromised with him.
Yeah. He said, hey, man, maybe they'll take it. Said maybe they'll take it better if you take a knee. That didn't work out. But the whole point is people don't follow up. And what I mean by that is I get on Facebook, I see an article, so-and-so indicted for rape. We throw someone's name up there and it says rape charges being thrown at this person. They're going to be going to court. So now we have the name. Now we have a negative thing towards that person. How many times have you gone, I wonder if I should go check up on that case and see if that guy really did it and what really happened? No,
yeah,
that doesn't happen.
Yeah, very rare. Like we may do it, and that's because it's our job to do it, but the general population does not.
So you take the first thing you hear. And another thing is like think about, and I want you to think about maybe the issue. This is just kind of throwing out there because people, it's all like you said, it's programmed. And another issue is everybody wants their opinion to be accepted, right? Nobody argues. Nobody discusses anymore. Facebook is all about we're throwing everybody.
Oh, yeah, it's how you look in the public sphere. Yeah.
Yeah. Everybody's here to teach. Nobody's here to learn. Right.
Yeah.
So another thing too, but that kind of plays into you're looking for confirmation of your thoughts and not looking for a change of view. And these algorithms and the internet and the way it works, you ever see somebody
into an echo chamber,
right? Or, you ever see, yeah, exactly. You see that thing where you go and you're like, you're talking to somebody about purses and then you get on your bro, I did this the other day. I was looking at a pair of Timberlands. This doesn't make any sense. This don't even make any sense. But I was looking at a pair of Timberlands because I was like, I don't even know why, but
yeah, that's kind of weird, but I've never even seen you wear Timberlands.
Bro, it's a Timberland running shoe combo. Okay, I'm not wearing like.
That's kind of dope. I'm not gonna lie.
I'll show you after this, bro. It's not like Tim's. Like I can't rock Tim. There's a reason. Like I love Jordans. I don't have the style to rock Jordans. It just doesn't fit, right? So I just stick to my like Ultra Boosts and Adidas and stuff like that. Things that fit white guys.
Skechers, New Balances, things like that.
Right? From what are the Heelys? But,
oh man!
But the whole point is I was having, now every time I get on Instagram, every time I get on Facebook, there's a feed, there's an advertisement for Timberland advertisement. So the whole point is if I get on the internet and there's a guy who did this, a black guy that did this on Facebook, this video of him, he made a separate account, a Google account, and he started only going to pro-Trump.
Bro, I saw that video. Right? I saw that video. Yeah.
And you notice now all of his suggested videos are more of that. And now all the people he talks to are more of those people that are recommended on websites or people that share that view. And I think the issue is just this constant confirmation of I have 50 people that agree with me and upvote me and confirm my thoughts. And now I'm even stronger on it. And now I'm going to, whitesupremacy.com to get my statistics instead of, fact.
That's what your following wants to see. Yeah,
exactly. And I think that's the issue when we come with
Cap. And what's even funnier, I think, which I'm sure you'd probably agree, and ESPN gets it wrong a lot when it comes to certain analysis. But even all of ESPN, even the people who disagree with the protests, were like, "Yeah, there's no reason he shouldn't be signed." There's, by any metric of what makes a starter or even a potential backup, there's no reason he shouldn't be signed. Everybody agreed with that. Even Will Kane, who vehemently disagreed with the protests, he even agreed, was like, yeah, there's no reason he shouldn't be signed. So you have people who don't even like what he's doing, like telling you like, we don't know what it is, but there isn't any, like, you know, there are little people that are more bold that are willing to make that claim. Yeah, he's clearly being blackballed. Look at the evidence. But even people who aren't willing to say that are still willing to say, well, he should be signed, but it could be these other factors that are playing but even they know he should be signed though. So that lets everybody know clearly what you're hearing about the statistics. And mind you, a lot of y'all are getting these statistics from some random conservative who is looking at statistics that he doesn't even understand. You know what I'm saying? Like they're reading the statistics without context, because statistics do lie, people. They lie often. If you want to know how they lie, my favorite player is Westbrook. We've had arguments on top of arguments about this. Obviously, we can look back in hindsight and be like, oh shit, he was always better. But the year that Rose won the MVP, him and Westbrook had almost the exact identical stats, down to the turnover ratio. And actually, efficiency-wise, or not even efficiency-wise, but usage-wise, Westbrook was able to do that with less of the ball handling responsibilities. So does that mean that Westbrook was an MVP candidate that year? No, he was not the MVP candidate that year, because Derrick Rose had to literally carry a team with half the year with no Joakim Noah, who was really at that time the second best player on the team, to a playoff run. Yep. But they had the exact same stats. So does that mean Westbrook was an MVP candidate that year?
Yeah. No. And the third best player on Westbrook's team is the best offensive player in the last 10 years. But I mean,
you talking about
James Harden?
Or Durant?
I'm talking about James Harden. They were talking about him the other day, talking about they've never seen an offensive player like James Harden.
Oh yeah, he's very unique though. Well, think about it. Like they say the same thing about all three of them over the last 5 years. There's literally been a conversation about all of them. I've never seen an offensive player like this. I've never seen an offensive player like this. And you know who got to be really feeling that shit? The fucking Thunder. Y'all are idiots. Y'all had 3 MVPs. 3 MVPs.
By extension, the entire city of Seattle.
Yeah, y'all got to feel it too, man. And even still, which I don't want to get too far into that, but just the fact, because people always want to make excuses saying, oh, it couldn't have worked. That's a lie. You know how you know it could have worked? Because Houston's doing it right now. Right. And we know, and we don't have to wonder if it will work, because as a sixth man, you're pretty much a starter, by the way. Like, especially in today's league. Harden, what made Harden an anomaly was because, well, not an anomaly, but what made him that six-man category, which some people would even still argue to today, wasn't his ability to score. It was everything else that he lacked. He didn't have composure in the clutch. His running the offense, he was okay. He had good ball handling skills, but he wasn't good at running an offense. And he played, at the time, zero defense. Right. So when all you can do is score, there are plenty of six men that if you put them in the starting lineup, we've seen J.R. Smith do it. We've seen Lou Williams do it. We've seen, obviously, James Harden himself do it, and Monte Ellis do it. Just because you can get buckets doesn't mean you're a starter. The anomaly is James Harden, because he's the first one ever to been able to do what he's done with Houston under that Mike D'Antoni offense and, translate that into victories. But when he got to the playoffs, because all you got to do to get to the playoffs in the West is have a decent supporting cast. You don't even need defense sometimes, and run and gun. But the playoffs, everything slows down. So what happens? They get to hone in on him, and then he showed why he needed his supporting cast with the other superstars. But to have Chris Paul and then have a coach that can make the mesh, let you know that there's no excuse for why the Thunder gave up James Harden and to think that wasn't going to work. That it was an organizational problem.
And sometimes you just miss on a player. Like, the potential's there, but it's just not fitting, and you just feel like that's the max.
You know why they gave him up? You're going to laugh. They gave him up because they had to keep Kendrick Perkins. They thought that
I remember that. Yeah.
Bro, for 50. And do you understand what James Harden was asking for that year? 56 million, bro.
Probably pennies. Well, I mean, 56 million isn't pennies.
56 at that time was like a big deal, but they knew the cap was increasing because of the collective bargaining agreement, and they just didn't think about it because the owner was being cheap. 2 years later, the cap increased, and it would have been pennies. If 2 years later, it would have been a steal for them. Bruh.
Exactly. Bruh. You would have had him locked in. You wouldn't be paying him anything.
Exactly.
So off of the NBA trail, One of the big arguments that I get back, and I have my argument for it, I want to hear what you say first, is when he's doing it on company time. We're talking about Colin Kaepernick again, right? You're at work. You're supposed to represent the workplace and protest on your own time, but you shouldn't be protesting at work. I feel like I have a good response to that. What are your thoughts whenever you hear? What's your first initial reaction when you hear somebody say that? Well, he's on company time.
My job is to, if we want to get technical with it, my job is to follow the rules of my employment, right? Exactly. According to the NFL regulations, there is no regulation saying I have to stand for the national anthem, which is why Marshawn Lynch has been able to get away with it for so long. And it wasn't just Marshawn Lynch; a few people have not stood, so he didn't do anything wrong in that regard.
That's exactly what I have, which is okay. I'm doing it on company time, but what if my boss is okay with it?
Yeah, which his boss was actually.
Exactly. And then you look at Houston, the Texans, and the management from there came down, and this was per the Arian Foster podcast, and were making claims against it and saying that they didn't like that. They didn't want players on the organization that would do that. And then Dwayne Brown, the left tackle, said, I want out of here.
Yeah.
I went out here. And he's from
Richmond. To a few places.
He's from Richmond. He's a real boy. So
he
dipped and he went to Seattle. So,
which is another funny thing that literally, everybody was trying to go to Seattle after that or during that incident, including Kaepernick. And then for some reason, I think it wasn't actually Kaepernick's fault. I actually think they were worried that Russell Wilson would have his confidence shot if they signed him. And nobody wanted to say that.
Here's the thing, bro. Russell Wilson's the third best quarterback in the NFL.
The third best? Oh, God, that's a conversation for a different day. We're going to have to – well, I guess it's not far-fetched considering, what's been, what, Payton's out, everybody else is on the decline.
It depends what you think about Drew Brees, because right now I think it's pretty much unanimous Tom Aaron.
That's what I think about Drew Brees.
Drew Brees, I want to give Drew another year before I take him out of the top 5. But with what Russell had to do this year, I got Russell at 3. And lists are arbitrary because everybody has different situations and different scenarios, so it doesn't really make much sense to start ranking. Yeah. The whole point is there's zero chance Colin Kaepernick rolls into Seattle and takes that starting spot.
Yeah, I agree with you, but what happens when Russell Wilson gets injured? I agree with you 100%.
Oh, yeah. Can Cap fit in Seattle? You know what? Let's talk about what teams.
And remember the team didn't really like him like that. They didn't like Russell. But the problem is they don't give a damn because you got your quarterback. I can always replace my defense. I just need young athletes who know how to memorize the scheme. But you don't get a good quarterback that can take you to a Super Bowl at that age every day. So, I agree with you, though.
I think Cap is I think an issue with them with Seattle is Cap in terms of CAP, and that's they just don't have enough. They didn't have enough money to keep Richard Sherman. They're letting a lot of bodies go, and they had to really pay that defense after a while. So I think that could be why they didn't sign. Coming. Right. I think that's why they may not have gone over Kaepernick. Just being set at the quarterback position, and then they have a young guy, Trayvon Boykin, who went to TCU, that they've had back there. I believe he's still there. And Russell's been pretty durable. So bringing in Cap and people all say, well, he wants too much money. Look, dude, if you have potential, look at Chase Daniel's contract. Chase Daniel, all he does is make money in the NFL for not playing. Any decent backup quarterback is going to make money. $10 million is pretty much the minimum.
Yeah,
you guys are going to be making. So I don't think Cap's asking for too much money. I definitely think he deserves a spot in the NFL. Is all 32 teams his fit? No. But here's the thing. There isn't a quarterback not named Aaron Rodgers, Drew Brees, or Tom Brady that could fit in every NFL team. And even then,
you're really looking at Tom Brady
and
perhaps Drew Brees.
Right. There's only been one quarterback who's ever won 2 Super Bowls with 2 teams. One.
What? And that's Peyton.
That's Peyton. Mm-hmm. Not everybody can just fit, and Peyton is.
Even Peyton's is is he really fitting? No, it's not even that because he controls his offense. So
he is the offense. And the year they won the Super Bowl, it was Von Miller because
that Broncos year. Yeah, you can't even really count that.
That wasn't even Manning playing at the highest level, because Manning's highest level was 2013 with Denver anyways, and then they
got obliterated,
blasted by Seattle. So Colin, by the nature of how quarterback is played, isn't going to be a fit on all 32 teams, but he's a fit on about 5. And I think he's absolutely being blackballed and absolutely being avoided. And what is another argument I heard was, well, these guys, these owners, they can't really be racist because there's too many other coaches and too many other people that would stand up to that if he was really racist. I say, hold on.
What?
This is how I see it, right? I could be racist. I can hate black people. I can not like their opinions. I can consider them all thugs. I see Niko House with a tattoo on his chest and his arms covered in tattoos, and I feel a certain type of way about Niko House. Y'all should have seen the old Niko with the dreads. Let me get old president, right? I could feel how I want about Niko House, and I could hate him, and I could not want to talk to him. And, but if Niko House makes me $50 million a year.
Yeah, ask Donald Sterling.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Exactly what I was going to say. If they can make me money, and that's just how it's always been. I'm not going to sit here and be like Mr. White Knight and stand up. The whole point is racism can definitely be persuaded with money.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yes. Historically, look at Alabama. Alabama refused to have any black people on their college football team, and then they got their ass whooped by a team that was all black, which I think was from California. Was it UCLA or USC? Like, they had all black players to prove a point, went and handed Alabama their ass, and now look. Exactly. I mean, granted, for Alabama, the only black people you may see on the campus are on the football team. But my point is that when it comes to that bottom line, you'd be very surprised how many values people are willing to sacrifice.
or money. So to pretend like somebody can't be rubbed the wrong way and be opinionated. And I just don't think it's very fair to Kaepernick to say things like, he's protesting the flag in the military. He's not even protesting the flag, dude. He's not even protesting. I feel a certain type of way about the way my people are being treated by cops. So let me do something.
And I would say, even how you gonna argue with somebody when they're like, he's protesting the flag? Actually, no, I'm not. This is what I'm protesting. No, you're not. You're protesting the flag. It's like, hold up, what?
That's the biggest issue I've had with any kind of communication. And then when you get people, specifically people close to me, caught in that loop, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they're not protesting.
Circular arguments.
Do you think Rosa Parks was protesting public transportation? You know what I'm saying? No, right? We've heard that analogy before. But I asked them that. I asked people close to me, and then I get, well, there's other issues that are going on, and everybody has.
What does that have to do with anything?
It's the deflection concept.
Yeah,
right?
Of course.
It's the whole deflection concept. A lot of things we see when we're talking about. You see people wanting to address gun laws, and you know me, I'm not Mikasa Sukasa in politics, so let me not get too deep in opinion. But from the outsider view, I see, it's just always deflection. You see people want to start pushing new gun laws, and then the people that are pro-gun are going, abortion kills X amount of people. You got to address the fire at the house that's on fire.
Yeah.
You can't say all the houses are important. You got to address.
And we're human. We're very complex and intelligent beings. We can handle two things at once. I promise you, it's not impossible. Another one of one of my favorite ones. I don't like politics in my sports, and you're like, what? You don't like literally every year in sports ever in history? There's maybe like a 3-year gap with politics wasn't involved in sports, and that's because we were kind of like, I would say with the NBA, David Stern, and really more so Adam Silver, they were smart. They were like, look, if we want to be international, we have to be an international brand. Whereas the NFL, I think, has failed in that regard. Whew, I mean, we can go on for days about how, but other than even before that, people forget what Kareem Abdul-Jabbar goes through and why he even to this day isn't considered the best player ever. It was because he was very stoic, but he was also very opinionated, very political, was an activist with Ali. There was another guy whose name was Ali, who played for the Lakers, who I think his name is Abdul Ali, I believe, but he played for the Lakers, protested the national anthem, and he actually got pushed out the league by the NBA, even though he was an all-star.
Right.
So, you can go with Oscar Robinson. The reason that a lot of people don't hear about Oscar Robinson outside of when Westbrook finally broke his triple-double record was because Oscar Robinson was actually fighting for players to be paid the way they should be paid. And that's the last thing the NBA wants to be discussed on a regular basis is how players are getting paid, especially after they got hit over the head with that collective bargaining agreement. So, but I do want to
point to this real quick for you while we're on this topic. Icarus is a Netflix documentary, and I heard this on the Joe Rogan podcast. He brought the guy who did it. Long story short, it was a guy who was an amateur. The guy who filmed the documentary is an amateur cyclist, and he wanted to see just how much of an impact steroids really has on your body. This was kind of in relation to Lance Armstrong and the whole issue regarding there. So he got a guy from Russia who was the head of the anti-doping agency to help him essentially dope. And A, got him on a regimen to dope. B, got him on a schedule to beat doping systems, because that's what they were looking into. How do I beat doping systems with PEDs? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then, and then how do I dope and what are the results are? But then that was the whole goal of the documentary. And then something got exposed. And this guy that was head of the anti-doping agency for Russia comes clean, and he exposes to this guy that he actually runs a Russia state-funded doping agency for Russian Olympic athletes.
Oh, yeah.
So
back when everybody knew for a fact that they were doping. Yeah.
So the head of the anti-doping agency was the mastermind behind Russian Olympic athletes doping. See how that seems to create. So that's what the whole thing is about. And then it was talking about how the reason Russia was doing this was because when they won, Putin's numbers went up ridiculously.
Of course.
Used that influence to invade the Ukraine. So also think about how many people related with a guy like Barack Obama because he was an athlete.
Yep. You remember he came to Fayetteville.
Right.
We played FTCC.
Right. Sports is influence. Sports is politics. We can't tell. And you know what? Why are you, news lady, or why are you, accountant, allowed to have political views that you can output, but LeBron James can't have political views that he can't put?
Yeah.
His job is to dribble a basketball. Your job is to balance checks. My job is to check networks. You know.
And I promise you, there are a lot of athletes. People who are like, oh, he's so rich because he's an athlete, and he's an athlete. That may be how he initially got rich, but there are a lot of super rich athletes who lose their money like this. LeBron James is a brilliant businessman. He's a very calculated thinker. I don't even like LeBron, but I'm never going to take that away from him. You can't. At the end of the day, he don't care what you want for him. Doesn't matter if it affects his brand and his business. Exactly. And it takes a very smart and wise person, especially can you consider he didn't have a father figure in his life. He didn't have a business mind in his life. When he got to the league at 18 and everybody's pulling him every which way, and he still came out on top. He's not a drug addict. He never got caught doing anything crazy in the league.
Athlete.
If anybody I want to give if there ever was a popular person who I want to hear a politically educated opinion, even if it may not be right, it would be this type of guy.
Right. A person who's been exposed to a lot of people trying to take advantage of him, who still have the ability to make good decisions and be wise. And you know what I love about LeBron James, man? He's a good dad.
Yeah.
He's a great dad and a great person. And even LeBron James could kneel at the anthem and people will have something to say about him and his skin color and things like that. And
despite the fact that he had the N-word sprayed across his house. And they're like, they would still be like, whoa, that's just a once in a lifetime, thing. That doesn't happen to everybody. Like, people live in a fancy world. But so I'm gonna go ahead and cut it off there. We're ending on all night, man. But it was a pleasure as usual. Make sure y'all check out Finn's podcast on MCSC Sports. You can look him up on YouTube or on Podbean as well. With that being said, make sure you leave your thoughts, your comments below. Subscribe, and always remember, ladies and gentlemen, find your balance.